What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tru Element 78 in the building with.
Your one and only reigning and defending Mondo Lucha Hall of Famer, the X-Man, Xavier Mustafa.
And the infamous one, the natural Chris Black.
And today is another special edition of the Saturday Night Slamcasters, where we will be covering Chapter 5 of The Undertaker's Last Ride documentary entitled Revelation. And this episode covers pretty much the beginning of from January of 2020 until April of 2020. So let's jump right into it and just talk about how this is the end, my friends. This is the end, my only friend, the end. Um, on the last episode, at the end of it, what we saw was the Extreme Rules match where Undertaker tagged with Roman Reigns to take on Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon. And at the conclusion of that match, Undertaker went behind the curtain, walked up to Vince, and told him, "Hey, I'm done. I'm here, but I'm not really here anymore, and like I'm pretty much finished." Have you guys Well, I'll pass that to Xavier Mustafa as a promoter. Have you had anybody retire under your watch yet after a match or anything like that?
Not after a match, but I had a guy that was booked on the show that made the decision that he wanted to retire and just basically texted me and was like, "Hey, I hate to do this to you, but I'm done with wrestling, so I'm not going to be able to do the show. But I just wanted to let you know, man. Sorry." And that was the last I heard from him. I texted him back and said, "Hey, bro, so you change your mind, the spot is here for you. I support your decision. If you need anything from me, let me know." And that was it.
And that man will be missed in the business.
Who was it? You care to say?
Uh,
Does it matter? I mean, we're not burying the guy.
I know. But you
It's
say
Chase McCoy.
yeah, you put him over and saying he will be missed, so I say give him a
Yeah,
shot.
Chase
Shout.
McCoy, awesome worker, hell of a good guy. He's one of the guys that's a really good, genuine person in the business.
Yeah, we can't just be
Don't
calling.
have a bad thing to say about him.
Yeah, we can't just be calling people out when we want to shit on them. We got to give people their roses. He said he'll be missed, so it sounds like he was a pillar and an institution in the elite in the community. So give him a shout out.
Truly dedicated to his character, hell of a worker. Like I said, and then a great human being. So
Right.
we miss guys like that in the business.
And then, like, this is gonna be one of those episodes where I call to you guys a lot, just mainly due to the fact that how long you guys have been in the industry. I know Mustafa has expressed a desire to step away from the ring over the past couple of years and everything like that, which I'm gonna assist him with sooner rather than later. But in this episode, there was a lot of talk about the Undertaker stepping away from the ring, and one of the things that Michelle McCool made known is that for 30 years he's been the Undertaker, and it's easy to know what the Undertaker does, but what does Mark Calloway do? In that him as a man doesn't know what comes after the Undertaker. Is that something either you have contemplated? Like, what do I do when I walk away from this? Like, how am I gonna find my release or whatever to put my energy
I've
in?
thought about it a lot, but it's one of those things where, like, I guess it helps me out is I'm not stepping completely away from the business. I'm still going to wrestle for time to time if it makes sense in the storyline, because I'm one of those type of people, like the Undertaker said a couple episodes ago. Like, I'm going to make sure that if I'm taking somebody's spot, I'm taking somebody's spot for a reason. I don't want to be one of those guys that hang around the business way too long and I'm just taking another guy's spot. So, but that and, being a promoter and a booker and stuff like that, it still keeps me engaged, still keeps me, excited about the wrestling business. So that's been my saving grace. Can I ever just step away and walk away from it completely? Probably not. It's been a big part of my life for, man, at least half my life on.
Most of your adult life, at the least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really given too much thought about it. I know, like Mustafa said, I will never truly walk away from the business. I'm still going to be involved in some way, shape, or form. I've always said that when I do decide to step away from in-ring action, I'll probably transition into management role. So that way I'm still involved. Plus, I want to be able to step away and not be forced out. So, like Mustafa said, if I need to wrestle a match on occasion, I'm still able to, and I'm still physically capable of it. And maybe the fans will look forward to it. Oh, shoot, Chris Black is getting back in the ring. So, yeah, I can't see my life without wrestling.
All right. And then one of the statements that Triple H made, which I thought was really interesting when talking about The Undertaker, was that he doesn't deserve the moment. He deserves to be satisfied. And I think that goes back to what Chris Black just said, is that you don't want to be forced out. You don't want to feel like there's this there's this setup for you to necessarily have to step away from the ring, but you want to step away being satisfied with the work that you've done, the job that you've done, that you've left the business in a better place than when you first entered it. Would you guys agree with that?
Leave it better than when you found it. One of my mentors used to always say.
And then something else Triple H said I found interesting, and Chris Black has voiced this on this podcast a couple of times, and he said when you have to start thinking about this, and that's when it gets difficult. When you're in that ring and you start having to overthink what you're doing in there, that's when those injuries are going to occur. That's when bad things are going to happen, when you start overthinking. Like, is that like I said, I remember Chris Black saying that a couple of times. That's something that you guys have experienced or seen somebody do in the ring, where they start second guessing themselves or whatever as they get older. Like, you may have worked them before and they were a certain way and everything seemed like it was natural, but then you could just see the wheels start having to spin when they're out there and they're just starting to lose that step.
I can't recall anyone that I witnessed myself, like, falling a step behind or whatnot, or the timing's off, or overthinking things. It's mostly rookies that are really stuck with you got to be like, dude, it's like Yoda, do or do, there is do or do not, there is no try, you either do it or you don't.
Because I think you said it, the hesitation, when you have that hesitation there, like,
I mean, speaking as a personal experience, when I first started using the split leg moonsault, when I used to practice it, I used to always second guess myself. And one of the guys I was training with was like, dude, just don't even think about it. Just do it. And it was easy after that.
I will say there is one person that I don't think anybody has noticed yet, but I have, that they're not what they used to be in the ring. And I think this person knows it too, so they try to keep themselves out of the ring. But I've seen it where it's like, okay, yeah, I think it's time.
is that local or national?
Local.
Oh, okay. I'm not gonna have you bury anybody on this one.
Nah, I'm not gonna bury nobody in this one. But it's somebody who I respect in this business. So and I don't want to say it as a negative thing, but they've been in the business for so long and have done so much for a lot of people in the business, and I don't want to bring that up like it's a negative, but
right.
But they acknowledge it too. So it's like, it's not like they're like, oh, I'm the best wrestler in the world, I'm the Triple H of the Indies, or they know it.
Okay. One of the interesting things in here was something that had been rumored and talked about, is seeing the Undertaker, and Michelle McCool had mentioned that whenever they're down there in Orlando, they make sure that they stop by the PC, and it was seeing Undertaker sitting there with the big man of NXT and just having a chat with them and working with them in the ring and passing on and instilling a lot of that knowledge. I think Xavier Mustafa had mentioned before that that's somebody that he would love to be able to get some coaching from. What'd you think about seeing Undertaker there coaching the next generation, the Keith Lees and the who else was in the room? Like,
I thought that was pretty awesome, and I think what he even said, to them was pretty awesome. Like, that's something that can never be. That's something that can never be fake. That is something that can never be like that type of experience. And somebody with that type of experience taking the moment to sit down with you and point out, hey, this is why you should do this. This is why you shouldn't do that. It would have been better if you did this. Like that's different than like I don't know. It's one of those things like I don't know if you go to school to learn a subject and then you actually sit there and talk to somebody that actually was there, like let's say during that time period, it's totally different because this person was there. This person is the expert. So you actually, I don't want to say you learn more from them, but you're more open to what they got to say versus, some general teacher trying to tell you, what happened during XYZ time. We got somebody like The Undertaker be like, yeah, I was there. I tried that. That sucked. It didn't work. And this is why. Or I did this. This worked. This is why. This probably could work for you. It's one of those things that you can't put a dollar amount or anything on. Like I thought it was pretty cool.
Okay, so I'm probably going to upset some people. I think that it's wonderful the Undertaker is, taking these big guys under his wing. The problem is, until WWE fixes their booking, how they book their talent, no matter what gems the Undertaker may drop on them, they may never have the opportunity to shine because WWE booking is just too crappy and nobody gets over.
That's true.
I was gonna say, do you think that as a big man, for the most part, do you think they might have a little bit more sway with Vince to be like, I'm gonna do this, I'm not gonna do this? That doesn't make any sense. Rather than being a somebody as small as Adam Cole or somebody like that telling Vince no, knowing Vince's affinity for big men.
I don't think that makes a difference no matter what size you are because Vince isn't going to take your opinion that highly until you've earned his respect. And what I mean by earn his respect is you're making him a ton of money or you've been there for a long time and proven yourself as, like I listened to the New Day podcast and they talked about how when they started the New Day gimmick, it was Vince McMahon who actually didn't even understand half of the stuff that they were talking about, didn't understand half of the promos that they did, but he trusted them enough to go out there and entertain the crowd, and they never let him down, so he has their trust. He said there's some things that when they started in the business, they would never get to do. They said they run away from the writers and stuff when they come to try to bring them scripts about their promo because they know they're not going to do it. But they get away with it because they've earned that trust. Undertaker's earned Vince McMahon trust. He can go out there and do whatever he wants to do, say whatever you want to do, and Vince is going to be like, okay, somebody like a Keith Lee is not going to be able to do that.
Okay, so the problem is I always think that I'm a very outspoken person. But I guess the difference is it's easy for us to say. But when you worked your hard, now everyone knows how hard it is to A, get the attention of WWE, and B, to even get us, a contract from them. Think about it. You worked your ass off. You finally are in the company. Once you're there, you're probably like, look, I'm not trying to screw up. I'm not trying to make waves. I think I'm going to get over on my talent, which you won't. So you're willing to just roll with the punches and not complain and not try to be that guy. And I think that's the problem. Everyone doesn't want to lose their spot, their job. They don't want to be booked into oblivion. Yeah, or just straight up just screwed. So
We'll see. That's where some of these guys' intelligence has to come into play because there's a way, and I don't want to go into too many details about my secrets, but there are ways where you can get what you want. You just got to know how to get it. And sometimes it's not as simple as, hey, I'm going to go up to Vince and tell him that I'm booked wrong. You know what I'm saying? You may have to, put 2 points against the middle or something. Or you may have to, just maybe drop a vague hint and then go out there and do it and then be like, hey, I said I was going to do that earlier and nobody had a problem with it. Like, there's ways that you can manipulate things, but you got to make sure at the end of the day that it gets a positive result, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, it was really interesting just seeing him working with those guys and then talking about when he gets in the ring and it kind of went back to what Triple H was saying. We had to start overthinking. He's like, I used to be able to just run these ropes. He was like, but now I got to step them out or whatever. And he was showing him trying to get his distancing and everything like that, running the ropes and everything. So next thing that they discussed was Undertaker being on the Broken Skull sessions with Stone Cold Steve Austin and AJ Styles, seeing that and hearing Undertaker and the way that he was talking and saying it sounds like Undertaker was only thinking about maybe one or two more matches, and that he would like to approach the Undertaker about possibly having him be one of those matches, and pretty much making it sound like Undertaker kind of sidestepped him when it came to having a match with him because he didn't want to feel like he was kind of wasting AJ Styles' time and different things like that. But then he said he started thinking about how he worked and got good with smaller guys and being able to work with smaller guys versus working with somebody like a Roman Reigns or a Brock Lesnar or something like that. It would be an easier fight for him with somebody small like AJ Styles than it would be to try and go out there and keep having these barn burners with guys the same size as him with his deteriorating health, I guess you could say. So what'd you guys think about AJ Styles' approach to trying to get the match with The Undertaker?
So this is a prime example of what I was just talking about. He made the call to The Undertaker, pitched the idea to The Undertaker, because if he would have pitched that to Vince McMahon or it was like, what's the dude name to wear the funny clothes? Michael Hayes or one of those guys, it probably wouldn't have. They wouldn't even have a second thought about it. They would just blow him off and like, yeah, okay, you kidding, Undertaker? But he knew to pitch the idea to the Undertaker, and then when the Undertaker pitches this to McMahon, McMahon knows, one, okay, this has been my right hand dude for 20 something years. I trust his opinion enough. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Where it would have been shot down any other way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with the way AJ did it. I think he did it the correct way. You want a match with The Undertaker, you get The Undertaker on board first because his opinion is valued by Vince McMahon and all of the powers that be. And why not? I've said that as soon as AJ Styles first got signed, I said it should be the Phenomenal One versus the Phenom.
Really?
Yep.
Because I would never have thought that match would happen in a million years. But when I heard about it, I was like, you know what? All right, that's a good idea. But I never, on my own accord, thought putting those two together.
I wanted to see it when AJ Styles, I think that they missed a boat. I think instead of wrestling Jericho in his first WrestleMania, he should have gone right after The Undertaker, right for The Undertaker, because I think back then The Undertaker probably would have been able to have a decent match with AJ Styles. He was still somewhat mobile. Was that
14,
the year he lost to Brock?
15. 2015? No, that was the year he missed, I believe. Okay. No. That wasn't the year that he missed because that was only 2 years ago. Damn, AJ came in 2014.
Well, I know that I'm thinking that they probably would have done a much better match if they would have done it that year at WrestleMania. Yeah, would that have jumped the gun a little bit? Sure. But The Undertaker would have been physically more capable than he is now.
That was WrestleMania 32. He wrestled Jericho.
So it was a year before he lost to Brock. No, Brock was 30. So it would have been 2 years after he lost to Brock.
And AJ Styles lost to Jericho, so lost to The Undertaker in his first WrestleMania. You know what? Lost to Jericho, lost to The Undertaker. I don't think it would have hurt him. Yeah. It's The Undertaker.
And I can see why people would come up with that Phenom versus the Phenomenal One, just because AJ Styles constantly gets compared to Shawn Michaels. So why not put Undertaker in there with somebody who's compared to the person who's given Undertaker, not even arguably, two of Undertaker's greatest matches.
Plus, AJ was that dude when he showed up in WWE.
Right. There was something else that I was gonna say about the way that he went about.
You know what? I mean, unfortunately, the world has been deprived of the Undertaker Mustafa match. That'd have been great.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you guys. What would you say that if we put it on the marquee could be the biggest match that your character could have on the independent scene that could put asses in
That,
seats?
that my character?
Yeah.
Oh man, me it would be either Undertaker or Brock. I think those would be the two.
Um, I would love to work Roman Reigns as a heel. I think I can get him over. And I'm not even trying to be egotistical by saying that. It's just that Chris Black is such an asshole, and I know how to get under people's skin, and they're not gonna cheer me. I'm a nobody, in the eyes of people. If I came out cocky as shit and wanted to challenge Roman Reigns and just be a straight up dick to him, I think that I could get him over as a baby face.
What
But I'm
about
just that hated as a heel.
here on the local scene? What's the biggest match that either one of you guys could have that people are like, "Holy shit, I gotta go to that."
I would want to wrestle Silas as a baby face and he's a heel. Silas Young.
I still think we need the Urban Horsemen versus what is C Red and not Marcelo Spade, Marche Rocket. What is that group called? They wrestle for Shakar and everything. I can't think of their group name.
I don't even know what you're talking. I know Marche Rocket. That's about it.
Well, they ain't wrestling for
think we need
Chicago
that
no more.
Milwaukee versus Chicago feud.
But I mean, if you just want to have a good, fun match with like a big name group, shit, Urban Horsemen versus the New Day.
Oh, we doing WWE people? Yeah, that would be dope.
I think that would be a fun ass match.
Too black. Mustafa and Big E just out there.
We would have to be the heels, obviously.
Oh yeah, definitely. The Soul Touches. There we go.
The Soul Touches. All
It's
right.
gimmick infringement.
All right. So it was what was even more funny was when they decided that Undertaker and AJ could have the match, and they tried to rib AJ by making it seem like Undertaker wanted to work some young kid from Tennessee at WrestleMania and whatever. And AJ's like, "What?" He's like, I didn't really believe him, but
Like, get me Akira Tozawa.
and so AJ eventually gets the match, and they pretty much set it up in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for I forgot what the damn trophy was that they were wrestling for or whatever.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but Undertaker pretty much inserted himself into the match after the OC beat the hell out of Rey Mysterio. He beat AJ, won the trophy, and they started building towards WrestleMania.
And you know what? At that time, I said that was a bad thing because Undertaker just comes out, choke slams, and pins AJ Styles. He just beat him. There is no feud.
Just
Well,
wait.
not to put the cart before the horse, but AJ Styles probably has to be one of the luckiest wrestlers in the world because he can say he was the last one to fight the Undertaker.
Well, I was gonna get to that, but since you brought it
Yet
up,
to be seen.
yes, I was gonna actually bring that up later on, but I'll bring it up now because anybody that's listening to this is obviously a wrestling fan. If you're seeking out content about wrestling, our little podcast at least, do you get to brag even though you lose to the Undertaker? Do you get to brag that you retired the Undertaker?
Yes.
Yeah. To say you had the last match with the Undertaker, oh yeah, that's some bragging
I
rights.
took the Undertaker.
Remember when he used to say he'll make you famous?
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing. Even though AJ Styles is already famous, he really
Now,
famous.
yeah.
Like you come out there and you're like, I may have lost, but I took the Undertaker to the furthest limits of himself, and he's unable to even compete. So I retired the Undertaker.
And see the thing, like, the Undertaker would never get fired by the WWE. John Cena would never get fired by the WWE. I think AJ Styles might be one of those people that would never get fired by the WWE. I think he cemented his legacy in WWE with that match.
In less than 6 years.
Yeah. although I was not a fan of the the graveyard match or whatever it was
Boneyard
called.
match.
Boneyard, yeah.
Let me ask you this question: do you guys think it was better that it was a graveyard match than a regular match? Knowing the limitations of the Undertaker, knowing the skill set of AJ Styles, factoring all that in, do you think that was the better way to do it? Because this I keep going back and forth about. Because I think, yeah, Undertaker would have been able to hang in with him, but I mean, if we were talking about 5, 6, 8 year ago Undertaker, hands down, it would have been a battle. It would have been a great match. But we know that Undertaker is a little bit limited right now, and AJ Styles is still on top of his game. So I kind of go back and forth. Like I don't know, to me, if that was
I
the
I would
best
say
situation for the time.
I would say as far as being able to control the narrative and the flow of the match with taking out all unpredictable elements is the best thing that could have possibly been done. So it would have been better than an actual match because, as you can see in the outtakes, when Undertaker busted his arm all open and stuff like that, things like that could just happen in the course of the match. And then what do you do? Like, where you have an incident like what happened with Goldberg. You guys already know from being in the ring that it's unpredictable what can happen in the ring. You try to control what you can, but at least when it's a pre-recorded match and it has all the fancy special effects and all those different types of things, you're more able to control the flow. You're more able to take care of any issues that do arise and present the best version of the people involved. So,
Okay. All right. So I think that I'm gonna stand by my opinion that they should have just had a regular match because I have faith in the abilities of both of the two men involved. I think that they could have pulled out a really good match. And I'll say this because Undertaker's matches that went horribly wrong, a lot of times he was wrestling a guy who was about the same size of him, if not, a little larger or whatever. Like the Roman Reigns match, it kind of got blown up, especially when they tried to do that spot where, they did the tombstone reversal or whatever. Well, you got two big guys. Undertaker probably couldn't lift up Roman, and Roman's probably vice versa. But AJ's a lot smaller, and I think that Undertaker would have an easier time, throwing him around, so to speak, lifting him up, picking him up and stuff. AJ would not be expected to try to outmuscle the Undertaker like Goldberg and drop him on his head. And I think that the both of them could have told the story enough that they could have had a match where there was less action, a lot more story, a lot more work, and I think it would have gone over a lot better.
and actually, I want to throw two more things in with what I said because they could have had a regular match and knowing that everything was pre-recorded due to the pandemic and everything like that. Even then, you look at the greatest match of all time between Randy Orton and Edge. Edge got injured in the course of that, and same thing could have possibly happened to the Undertaker in that situation. And then when it comes to wrestling AJ Styles and different things like that, and AJ's moveset, Undertaker's not getting into no Styles clash and all that different type of stuff. And the way that they built the feud up, it would have needed to be a street fight anyway because he made it personal. It wasn't about the Undertaker. It was about Mark Calloway more than it was about the Undertaker.
True.
So it
But if
needed
they
to
were
be
just
a
going to go
brawl.
with a quote unquote standard match, even if it was pre-taped, just because the Undertaker, pretty much was the originator of like the casket match. I think this should have been a casket match in an arena, in a wrestling ring. They could have did all the, the whatever smoke and mirrors or whatever, and all the glitz and glamour and all the other cinematic shit. And they could have just made a really good wrestling match with a really good story. I'm sorry. I wasn't a fan of the Boneyard
Buried
match. I
alive
just
match
wasn't.
in the PC. So
Eh?
another one of the interesting things was you pretty much almost got to see the Undertaker cry because he was talking about how they went to go and see the farm or the cemetery or whatever and the setup, and they were building it out. And he said it was like a 45-minute drive from the PC to the cemetery or to the set cemetery, interchangeable, whatever. And on the drive, he said it was him, Michael Hayes, Triple H, and a bunch of people in the car. He got a call from his niece, I believe he said, that his brother Tim had died. He had had a heart attack. And he said that at that moment, it made him realize the importance of family and how you never know when it's going to be your time or anyone else's time. So you should try to spend as much time with them as possible and put as much into your family as you put into this business. And so the next day was when they actually had to film the actual Boneyard match. So thinking about your brother who died and you actually having to bury him to the 24 hours, less than 24 hours later, you're out here in an actual cemetery preparing to actually bury somebody. Like, and you just saw how uncomfortable, I'm going to call him Mark Calloway at this moment, like how uncomfortable he was, and he's crossing his legs and he's fidgeting and different things like that, and just seeing how the death of his brother really had an effect on him. What'd you guys think of that?
So this is the narcissist in me. As far as death goes, death is a part of life. It is inevitable. It's something that we all have to deal with. And everyone grieves differently. But I don't think I'd be affected that much. Not to the point where I would not do my job duties. You know, I'm one of those people that accept death. Like I said, it's inevitable. It's going to happen to all of us. We all have to deal with it in one way, shape, or form. And we can't put our life on pause or on hold because of it. Sorry if that sounds cold.
Well, before Xavier jumps in, I like to throw out there to you, do you think it may have affected him a little bit differently? Because for the past 30 years, he has spent 320 days a year pretty much on the road and being away from his family and not being there missing out on so many moments in maybe his niece's life, his brother's life, his
okay,
kid's life.
That's just personal guilt for not, being, I guess, around your family and being kind of like away from them and not spending time with them. So again, that's what we all as humans have to deal with when that person dies. Oh man, did I make that much of an effort to go see them when they were alive? That's just people have to deal with. You make your choices in life. If you chose to choose your job, your lifestyle over friends and family, then that's the decision that you made. You can't regret it now that people are gone. You can't look back like, oh man, I should have. Well, but you didn't.
I remember I had this conversation with my mom, and we were talking about the show Big Brother. And we're talking about on the show, like a couple of seasons where, somebody would pass away in their family, and then they'll leave the show to go, bury the person and be with the family. So my thoughts on that was, well, here I am with an opportunity to win $500,000. Let's say it's Survivor, $1 million or something like that. Would I really want that family member to know that because I took the time to go to their funeral and all that good stuff, that I lost an opportunity for $500,000 or $1 million? So, like I told her, I said, if you was in the house and you got a call that I passed away, I said, I want you to stay in the house. Right. Now, of course, my mother thought the opposite, so that conversation didn't really go too well. But, I kind of look at the Undertaker probably thinking it the same way, like, well, especially there's nothing I can do now. They're not burying him tomorrow. So I can go ahead and do this. Yes, it's going to be on my mind because that's my brother. But I'll take care of it afterwards. I gotta do my job right now.
Exactly.
That's pretty much where I've always come in at it. And like, there's nothing I can do about it right now. Just give me the details or we'll make arrangements. And the show goes on until the show doesn't.
Right.
There's no FYI. Remember, if I get casted on Big Brother, I'll pass away. I'm gonna try to still get that $500,000 again.
Well, you better come haunt the house. Get all the other people out.
Right. I got your back even in death.
So the match went off pretty much without a hitch. Like I said, they got to present the best versions of themselves. So obviously the match was going to come off well on television. A lot of people said it was the best match on the WrestleMania show. We got reviews of that WrestleMania show, and Chris Black has already on this podcast expressed his displeasure for this match. One of the things Undertaker said though was there was a moment where he put his arm through the window of the hearse that they were using. Which when I saw it during WrestleMania, and I saw how he busted his arm open, and then they showed it, and it was all swollen, and I'm like, well, if he just busted his arm, it shouldn't be swollen. And here they actually show the outtake of him breaking the glass, and then the people having to come in and get the chips of glass out of his arm, which actually explained why his arm was already swollen, because he had legitimately busted it open on the glass. So that was an interesting tidbit in this documentary. And then one of the things the Undertaker mentioned as well was not just that moment of having to stand around and wait for them to get the glass out when they're setting up for all their different shots and everything. He said more than anything, like any match that he's had over the past several years, it was the waiting around and the standing around that really took a toll on him. He said that after everything was all said and done, he felt like he had been in a 45-minute match in this controlled environment, which was pretty interesting. What you guys think of the behind the scenes details of what the day was like?
I think if you're a pro wrestler and you're trained to do matches, the style of pro wrestling, the whole Hollywood start and stop, like the Undertaker said, your adrenaline cannot compensate for. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. So now your adrenaline goes away, and then you gotta start again and resume where you were, pick up where you left off. All that starting and stopping, that's going to disrupt, I guess, your whole bodily momentum. I don't know if that's even a term, but like I said, it stops the adrenaline, and that's the drug that we all talk about in pro wrestling is the adrenaline rush. And I don't think I can really, if let's just say if I was supposed to have a really good me and Mustafa's having a career versus career match. I think that just going out there and having the match and having all the adrenaline and all the emotion going into the match, that match is going to be 100 times better than if we shot, stopped, cut, edit. It's just going to cut off. It's just going to completely fuck up the entire flow of the feeling of the experience of the match for me.
Says the king of the rest hold.
Hey, it works.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have more to add to that.
All right, and then following the match and the next day, Michelle McCool actually said that's when her nephew ended up dying in a car accident, which we get back more to that death. And I think it was probably more than anything the uncertainty of the pandemic and when live crowds are going to be back. The fact that Undertaker's brother passed away, and then a couple days later, Michelle McCool's nephew passed away. So you had a young guy and an old guy die within I'll say like a 72-hour period.
Now, I will say that dynamic changes everything, in my opinion, because you got to be there for your wife. So, but again, when is it happening? When is the funeral happening? Are you okay enough for me to, be with you in 2 days? No, then I got to come home because that's the wife.
But at the same time, I mean, Michelle was also, I mean, she was in the business for a short amount of time, but she knows his dedication towards the business. She should, at the very least, should be able to understand his commitments. I get what you're saying. Obviously, you're going to want to, if your wife really, really needs you to be there for her, by all means, you got to be there for your wife. But she has to know. But she has to know if she can go those 2 days without the Undertaker, or for his love and support, then she should be that supportive also.
Right, like I think she would be that woman. Like oh yeah, we good.
Right.
Yeah.
Shit, MVP of this documentary has been Michelle McCool.
No doubt. I've liked her insights, and she's kept it real. And like I said, compared to pretty much every other WWE documentary, this one is unique for several reasons. I feel like Undertaker had maybe a lot of control over how it came out because it seemed like they didn't really pull a lot of punches. He gave a lot of honesty. You saw that he actually was paying attention to the things people were saying. And Michelle McCool was pretty much echoing a lot of things fans had been saying for a while about The Undertaker, and her being there and physically seeing the state of her husband and knowing that, hey, like, honey, I think it may be time. Maybe, yeah, like like you're gonna do what you want to do, but I'm gonna tell you how I feel about it. Just seeing that dynamic of the relationship, like I say, Undertaker, Michelle McCool, maybe more relationship goals than Will Smith and Jada Pinkett at this point. And having Vince McMahon on your documentary and seeing Vince tearing up and hugging and laughing and joking and commenting on, like, we haven't had that. Vince McMahon doesn't just come out to speak about just anyone. And so that's been interesting in this documentary. And so now we're at the end of the episode, and Undertaker saying that how he had pretty much become a, in case of emergency, break glass, and he doesn't know if that's still going to be his position. But he says after following that Boneyard match, he feels that he's done everything. He'll continue to give what he can back to the business, but he doesn't see himself stepping back into the ring or in between those ropes and having another match. And what do they always say in the wrestling business? Never say never.
Never say never.
You know, I got one small comment about Vince McMahon and The Undertaker and why it must be their relationship is something different. Now, Undertaker is not an exception as far as a guy who's brought in probably tons of money for McMahon. But when you think about it, Shawn Michaels was a fucking headache. Hogan was a fucking headache. Stone Cold, to a certain degree, was probably a headache. I don't know about John Cena, but it's like Undertaker has basically been there for Vince. I mean, he's been there. If there was ever any type of, I don't know, drama, I think, you know, if Vince basically said, get him, you know, they'd have to deal with The Undertaker. Not even in a physical sense. I mean, they just have to deal, he was like the judge. He was there when Bret Hart knocked him on his ass after the Montreal Screwjob. So, I mean, there's a deep connection between Vince McMahon and The Undertaker. And as far as I know, I don't think Undertaker gave McMahon a headache as much as all the other quote-unquote stars did. So I can see why Vince McMahon holds a special place for The Undertaker.
I mean, you think about it. He was there for Vince McMahon anytime he needed him. Hence the in case of emergency, break the Undertaker glass, which I thought was cool. Also, he was there for the boys, like you said, with the Montreal Screwjob. He was ready to fight people. Yeah. You know, like, why did this happen? Like, you know, he was one of the first people, like, what is going on? Why you didn't tell me what is going on? You know, like, you know, I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know, man. He's a special breed of dude. Yeah. And I don't think, you know, I don't care how hard you try to mimic everything he's done, there will never, ever in life be anybody like The Undertaker.
And on top of that, that's also due to the fact that we don't get to have characters anymore. Nobody wants to play make-believe and dress up anymore.
Goddamn cosplay wrestlers.
Yeah, that's what
It's funny because the cosplay wrestlers are cosplaying as wrestlers instead of cosplaying as other, you know, remember back in the day it was all about jobs, you know,
so
you had a
Repo
garbage man running around, you had a clown, you had an accountant, you had all kind of crazy stuff going on. Now you got the Undertaker,
Repo man.
right? You got the Undertaker, you got the Fiend, and that's about it.
Shoot, you had Kamala running around there.
Right?
You had all
you had Shango.
Yeah, you got witch doctors. Like everybody had a job. but yeah, this documentary was really good, really cool. I never got around to watching the Michael Jordan The Last Shot series or whatever. But as far as wrestling, I would say this is one of the best documentaries, even though it doesn't cover his entire career, but just the honesty in it, because you know, professional wrestling, how they like to stretch the truth. I think that this is one of the better documentaries where you actually got real insight and real honesty from the people involved in creating it.
What would you guys say is the Undertaker's next move? Because I don't think he's done with the business. I think he's done with the wrestling part, but I foresee him not necessarily being a full time trainer, but probably being a guest trainer fairly often. Kind of like when Shawn Michaels first started. And I foresee him doing that.
I think if he would be willing to deal with the travel schedule, maybe not so hectic travel schedule, I think an authority figure with him not being face or heel, just being him, I think would work. You know how kind of like God damn it, I forgot his name just like that.
Like
On NXT.
Teddy Long?
No, like
Regal.
Like Regal on NXT. He's just Regal. He's not a face nor heel. He just is the commissioner. He's the face that runs the place. Undertaker has always been that guy behind the scenes. Why not? Why not have him be the authority figure?
If I was WWE, I would actually just start a PC East and a PC West and put a performance center over there in Texas. And you could send guys over there to work with people on that side of the coast and send people over to Orlando. That way they can get a lot of different experiences and looks, and you can have more talent get a little bit of shine. That's what I would do instead of trying to do their global plan. I would allow our wrestlers to train in different parts of the country and get different experiences instead of always having everybody come down to Orlando. And I would have Undertaker be in charge of that performance center in Texas if that's something he wanted to do.
I would like that idea, but you know what would happen? The ones that would come out of the West would have personality and be way better than ones coming out of the Performance Center. Because think about it. Undertaker would not be producing them cookie cutter wrestlers like the Performance Center in Orlando is doing right now.
Right.
I can't see Undertaker having it. Which would be good for the business.
Right. Business needs variety.
But I also think what's next for the Undertaker is him pretty much relaxing because of how long he's been there, how they talk about the roar of the crowd, the rush of the crowd. I think he's going to have to step away from the business for a while to just let that get out of his system before he wants to come back. But I believe he's 57 or 58. So
that's still pretty young.
Yeah, but are we being selfish? I mean, like the man has a wife, kids, you know, he's got a family. Like, if he were to just walk away from the business and maybe do an appearance here and there, just, you know, kind of wave like, hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive, you know, every now and then.
Isn't that what he was doing? That's what WrestleMania season
is it being selfish as a fan to be like, no, he should stick around and, you know, be a trainer or be an on-air character, personality?
It is, but that's also why I'm saying, like, not only just to have Undertaker involved, but that would be one of the goals because you could send your big guys over there to actually train with a big guy in Texas. So a lot of the WWE's biggest, like, actual physically biggest wrestlers have come from out west when you really think about it. And so you have those people that could train them over there and give them different looks. Undertaker wouldn't necessarily have to leave his state.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kind of like maybe WWE sends all their big men specifically to go train at this place with Undertaker. Maybe some other big dudes. I don't know.
Right. And then
I think they need their own kind of
right to kind of isolate them a little bit, but also people from that side of the country could also go there, and now you're not so reliant on having 300 people trying to train in one building down in Orlando. You can split those two people against the different coasts, and how we always talk about when the indies were much bigger of a thing and you didn't have a performance center and everybody came down there and the way they punched and the way they moved and the way they did things was a lot more unique than everybody now is in the same system, getting coached by the same people out of the same building, and everything is just cookie cutter. Everything is a duplicate. Everything is a clone of the person that came before them. The move set may be a little bit different, but the punches are thrown the same. The stumps are done the same. The knife edge chops, like everything just looks the same. Nobody has any real unique movements, which is why personality is so important right now, and so many people are lacking the personality, and that's not due just to the person not having personality. It's also the way that they're written. But I think having them be able to have more one-on-one time, splitting up the trainee roster and different things like that would benefit the business as a whole and benefit WWE especially. And it would also be able to have the Undertaker involved, because I don't think, if Undertaker's leaving for family, I don't envision him going down toward the PC in Orlando as often as people would like for that to happen. But I think if it's in Texas, you allow him to be a little bit more comfortable. I know Shawn Michaels lives in Texas as well. Stone Cold is in Texas. Like, think about the people that could be involved in that performance center that those people could work with down there in Texas. Hell, I think Stevie Richards is in Texas. People forget about Stevie Richards, but I think Steve Richards would be a great coach for people. So, yeah, that'd be my thought, and that'd be my next step if I was The Undertaker. I would be pushing to have my own PC or version of the PC in my neck of the woods, because we can get some of these people who have been over involved, and you take a lot of strain off of the current building that you're in, especially if you're going to be operating there for a while. They're already talking about, they need to know by the end of December if they're going to be able to hold WrestleMania in LA. So, but it's looking like it may be in the Performance Center again next year.
Well, I'm just going to say, I guess to wrap this up. Sounds like we're wrapping this up.
Raw dog.
There's a meme. What?
Go ahead.
I said, to me personally, the meme that kind of wraps all this up in a nice little bow. I don't know if you guys seen the cartoon meme that has the Undertaker in full Undertaker get up coming to the ring. There's a middle-aged man with a little boy, and the boy's holding up the sign saying Undertaker. And then there's one where they're coming away from the ring. The boy is now an older man, and the father is now an old man, and it says goodbye. And so to me, that kind of sums up me and my relationship with Undertaker, because the Undertaker was my era of wrestling when I first started watching. So I feel like I'm that little boy that's grown up to a man, and I got to see, the totality of his career. So,
True that.
So thank you, Undertaker.
Absolutely. He debuted in 1990 at WWF as The Undertaker. I was 9 years old. I remember that debut. And like you just said, it's been an honor to kind of watch him for the past 30 years.
I was 3 years old when he debuted, but I remember it. And just want to sum it up by saying thank you, Taker. You have been the rock of the professional wrestling industry, and you've been the standard for the professional wrestling industry.
Right.
And consistency and dedication, and I don't think that we're really going to see anybody like that. I don't even think we're going to see anybody who has that same longevity at the top when you think about it. He wasn't always competing for championships. I think he only had 3 WWE title reigns.
Oh, was it 3? 2 or 3? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they weren't long.
Yeah, but without competing for titles,
he
remained at the top of the card. He main evented pay-per-views when the championship was on the line.
Right. He's the epitome of someone who doesn't need a title to get over.
Right.
Yep, didn't need it.
Didn't even need it in his feuds.
Oh.
What were Undertaker's feuds really about? You even think about them.
It was really people just trying to
respect.
Just try to best the Undertaker. That's basically everyone that's ever gone after him is because he's the Undertaker. And how do you prove you're a badass? You take out the Undertaker.
All right.
Many have tried.
All right.
And more have failed.
So, like I said, thank you, Taker. This has been the Slamcasters review of the Last Ride documentary. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I don't know what we got coming next for you guys, but be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to ring that bell so you're notified whenever new episodes go up. And also leave us a like. You guys want to give us your social media?
You can catch me at Xavier Mustafa on Facebook and Twitter. You can catch my solo podcast at XM Cinema. And you can catch me on my social medias on there, XM Cinema on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And you can catch me at Instagram and Facebook at The Natural Chris Black, and also on Twitter at _natural_CB. And you can also check out my YouTube channel at The Natural Chris Black. Right now, really have a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling reviews.
All right. And you can find us wherever you get your podcast from. That content is completely different from what we do here on YouTube. There's a lot more to do with the current product. We also talk about movies and life and a lot of other different things over there. So be sure to search Saturday Night Slamcasters on iTunes, Spotify, Google Music, YouTube Music, all the different places where you get your podcast from. Also, you can find me at Slamcaster TE78 over on Twitter. Not too active over there, but you can also find us on Facebook.com. Just search Saturday Night Slamcasters. Also, be sure to join our Discord channel where you're able to listen in with us while we watch pay-per-views live, and we'll also pop in there and just have discussions with you guys from time to time. So, other than that, holla at your boys. We up out of here. Come get slammed. Peace.